The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I am doing pretty good. How is everybody doing tonight?
Tonight, we have a very, very cool show for you. There is going to be an article. It is a short one. And then we're going to go over a bunch of cool stuff and some stories from our own life and all kinds of stuff. I ran across this article, and it made me think of a question that I have been asked, I don't know how many times, a lot. And it's something that the majority of people out there have asked at some point, usually to a pastor or a preacher or somebody like that. And I thought we would kind of tackle that question tonight as well. So first, the article. The article is from Futurism.com. And the headline is Scientists Claim to Have Proved That Crows Have Conscious Experiences. It was published September 25th, 2020, and it was written by Dan Robitsky. That's a cool last name, Robitsky. I like the way it sounds. All right, here we go. For the first time, scientists have found that crows are capable of subjective conscious experiences and perceptions. It's a big step forward in our understanding of animal cognition. Prior to this, we only knew of conscious perception among humans and other primates. The brains of animals like birds were considered too different from our own to have subjective experiences. But this study, published Friday in the journal Science, potentially upends scientists' assumptions about just how smart animals might be. Crows and other corvid birds have long been known for their smarts and puzzle-solving abilities, but now brain scans conducted by neuroscientists at the University of Tübingen reveal that crows actively think about whatever stimuli they experienced during an experiment, even when it wasn't present. That's a pretty big deal, since bird brains have vastly different and smaller cerebral cortexes, which are thought to be the source of human consciousness. The results of our study opens up a new way of looking at the evolution of awareness and its neurobiological constraints, lead author Andreas Nieder said in a press release. Assuming the study holds up to further scrutiny, the biggest question is when this consciousness originated, and whether it's shared by any other non-primate animals, or if it developed in crows independently. The last common ancestor of humans and crows lived 320 million years ago, Nieder said. It is possible that the consciousness of perception arose back then and has been passed down ever since. And that is the end of the article. As I told you, it's a very short article. The basic gist of this article is now they believe that crows are capable of conscious thought. That's basically it. And that got me to thinking, this is a debate that has been had back and forth for a long, long time. Usually when people ask this question, it is young people. Okay, it is like children or just past the children age, very early teenage kids. And the question they always ask is, do animals go to heaven? Will my pet be with me in heaven? Now you have a lot of different answers, unfortunately, to that question that they receive. And I think that's because of a fundamental misunderstanding of what the Bible has to say about the subject. I have had people that are very, very religious people that study the Bible that have told me animals do not have souls. And I'm here to tell you tonight, they're wrong. So we're going to get into that. we're going to go all the way back to the very beginning. In the very first creation story, man and woman are created in God's image. And he decided to let humans govern all of the animals. But believe it or not, it also tells us that animals have a soul. Okay, in Genesis 1:30 it reads, "And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat," and it was so. Now you might say, well, that does not say that animals have a soul. What in the hell are you talking about? It does actually say that animals have a soul in that passage. It's a translation issue. It describes animals having life. Now, the Hebrew word for life, and forgive me if I mispronounce any of the Hebrew. I know Hebrew as a written language. I do not speak Hebrew, so I may mispronounce some things. If I do, I apologize. But the Hebrew word for life is hayah. But in Hebrew, it also has the word nefesh in combination with hayah when you look at the Hebrew translation. Now, that is the exact same wording that they use to describe the soul in the creation of Adam in Genesis 2:7. So, in other words, though nefesh is only translated as life in this passage, in Genesis 1:30, in the Hebrew translation, they're actually talking about the soul. They're saying animals have a nefesh hayah just like Adam does. Okay? So they're saying in Genesis 1:30 in the Hebrew text that animals have a soul. It's also used to describe all of the sea animals and all of the flying creatures that God created in Genesis 1, verse 20 and 21, and Genesis 1:24. Genesis 1:24 says that cattle, creeping things, and beasts also have a nefesh hayah, as well as fish in Leviticus 11:10. So we see many, many different verses here and many different kinds of animals that are described using the same words that is used to describe Adam's soul in the Hebrew text. Now, some people will dismiss the idea that animals have a soul because the Bible does not explicitly depict God breathing the soul into animals like he does with Adam. Now, if you take that logic to its conclusion, its logical conclusion, then that would mean that women do not have a soul either. Because the Bible does not state that God breathed the soul into Eve. It just speaks about taking Adam's rib to make Eve. It doesn't talk about actually breathing the soul into her like it does with Adam. But it's implied. You know that it happened because that's how life is formed. So I submit to you it's the exact same case with the animals. If the Bible is telling you that the animals have the soul, the only way they could have a soul is if God breathed the life into them, the soul into them. Now the Bible is full of passages where the animals praise God, just like people praise God. Okay, you can find those in the book of Psalms, you can find them in Isaiah, you can find them in the book of Revelation, and many other places. Now, while I'm doing all this, I'm not going to read you every single passage because I don't want this to be like a Bible study that takes an hour. Okay? I'm giving you the books, I'm giving you the verses in some cases. You can look them up for yourself if you would like to. Where it's relevant and where it's necessary, I will read the passage. But what this does by talking about the animals worshiping God, it is telling you that all of God's creation is aware of God. Okay, a great example of this is the story of Balaam's donkey. Now, that story will demonstrate to you that animals are much, much more than soulless beings, because you will notice that the donkey is able to perceive things that somebody without a soul could not perceive. So Balaam was called the wicked prophet because even though he knew God, he betrayed him. The king of Moab asked Balaam to go and pronounce curses over Israel for some cash. Balaam was unable to do that because God had blessed Israel. So his curses didn't mean anything. Now, eventually, he ended up finding a kind of back door, a kind of roundabout way to invoke God's anger against Israel by going and enticing Israel to sin. But during this process, Balaam is riding his donkey in the story. When the donkey sees an angel of the Lord that's standing in the way, now the donkey walks around the angel of the Lord because he could see the angel of the Lord was in the way. Balaam, being a man who had a soul, he couldn't even see that the angel of the Lord was there, but the donkey could. Now, each time the donkey sidestepped the angel, Balaam would smack it upside the head because, see, he couldn't see the angel. Only thing he knew is this dumb donkey kept walking off the road. So he'd smack it, get back on the damn road. Then the angel would appear again in the middle of the road and the donkey would walk around it. Balaam couldn't see the angel, so he smacked the donkey again. So then God opens the mouth of the donkey. That's what it says in Numbers 22:28. And the donkey asked Balaam what she had done for him to hit her like that. So basically the donkey's like, dude, why are you smacking me around? I didn't do nothing to you. What's your problem? So Balaam answers that the donkey was making a mockery of him. And he said that if he had a sword on him at the moment, that he would kill the donkey. Now, obviously the donkey wasn't too pleased with this. So the donkey tells Balaam that he has ridden her all of his life, so he should know her. And the donkey asks if she's ever acted like this before. And Balaam says, well, no. Okay, this is Numbers 22:30 now. Then God opens Balaam's eyes, and he's able to see the angel of the Lord. And the angel of the Lord is standing there with his sword in his hand. So, of course, seeing this for himself now, Balaam got down. I mean, he fell flat on his face and was bowing to the angel of the Lord. So the angel of the Lord asked Balaam why he hit the donkey 3 times. Why did you do that? He said, the reason I'm standing in your way right now is because your way was perverse before me. Okay, now in this story, the angel is representing God here. He's coming because he's been told to come. Numbers 22:32 goes on to talk about that he continued to say that if the donkey had not turned him away, that the angel would have already killed Balaam. So you shouldn't be smacking the donkey because the donkey saved your bacon. Basically what the angel is saying is, I came here to kill you because you're on the wrong path. You're going the wrong way with your life. You're doing stuff you ain't supposed to be doing. So God sent me here to kill you. But right when I was about to strike you dead, the donkey veered off the path. So I waited. So here you are beating this donkey's ass when you should be nice because the donkey saved your life. That's the basic idea there. But the important thing about that story, it's a cool story. That's why I told the whole story. I like that story. But the cool thing about it is that the donkey could see the angel of the Lord without God opening the donkey's eyes. Now remember in this story, God had to open the eyes of Balaam. Now when I say open the eyes, when the Bible talks about that, that just means giving you the ability to see what you can't see. That's what that phrase means. He didn't literally have his eyes closed. He spiritually had his eyes closed, if that makes sense to you. But Balaam had to have his eyes opened by God. God had to grant him the ability to see that angel. But the donkey could already see the angel. Pretty cool. Now, if a donkey was a soulless creature, right, that was just alive and going around mindless, didn't have a soul, would it be able to see the angel of the Lord? Now, this also implies that animals can see the spirit world all the time, while we can only see it part of the time when our eyes are open to it. Some people think it's because animals are innocent. That's another reason why a lot of people say that children can see a lot more of the paranormal than adults because they're still innocent. They're not jaded by the world yet. They still have that innocence so they can see what truly is, whereas adults, most of us can't. This is backed up by science as well because science talks about how cats and dogs, people's pets, are often able to know when something is getting ready to happen. They know when a hurricane's going to come or a forest fire, something bad is going to happen. They seem to have a sense of it and they get away. You find that in wild animals as well. They will bail out of the forest when something tragic is about to happen. They don't stick around. They're gone before it happens a lot of times. But with humans, we don't see the stuff like they do. Humans can only see the spiritual realm when God opens our eyes, when God makes an exception to the norm and gives us that sight. God makes that exception for some of us sometimes. Just like he made an exception for the donkey and opened his mouth, gave him the ability to speak in human language, where most donkeys can't speak in human language. Maybe Mr. Ed, he's a horse, not a donkey, but the way he actually was really made to speak is kind of terrible. I'm not even going to get into it on the show because actually I'd have to censor it if I did. But let's just say they inserted things to make him move his mouth. It was not very pleasant. But most of all, what this story illustrates is the ignorance of Balaam, not the donkey. Remember, he wanted to kill that donkey. And then he finds out from the angel of the Lord that the donkey actually saved his life. Very, very cool story. Now, the other takeaway from this story is that God defended the life of the animal before he did the human because the human was in the wrong. If animals were soulless creatures that were just put here just to exist and serve a purpose and that's it, and they didn't have a soul, they didn't have a consciousness, they couldn't think for themselves, they couldn't feel, they didn't get sad, they didn't get happy, none of that, why would God bother defending it? It would be like you defending a cardboard box that serves a purpose, but it doesn't have any kind of soul or anything. What do you care? It's a box. You can just make another one. You see what I'm saying? God loves all of his creation because he gave them souls. Now, the soul gives the body a personality. It gives you your willpower. It gives you intelligence. Those are three things that the soul gives you. Now, we can see all of those traits in the donkey. Because once this donkey could speak, she tried to reason with Balaam. That requires intelligence. She tried to put a guilt trip on Balaam, saying, hey man, I've been with you all this time. You rode me your whole life. What's up? Why are you doing this? That shows intelligence. That's strategic planning there. It shows a personality. We see all those traits in the donkey in this story. Another thing I would point to is that animals are going to be part of the kingdom of God in the end times. In Isaiah 11, verses 6 through 9, it says, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them, and the cow and the bear shall feed, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox, and the suckling child shall play on the hole of the asp. An asp is a snake, by the way, in case you don't know. And the weaned child shall put his hand on the cockatrice den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all of my holy mountain. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. So here we see that in the millennial kingdom, which is what this is talking about, animals will be there. Because, see, animals did not break any of the commandments in the Garden of Eden. Well, I mean, the serpent did. who tempted Eve to eat the apple. The serpent was kind of in the wrong, so that's why the serpent has to slither on its belly now instead of having legs. And the serpent was like the embodiment of the devil in that story. So he is like the exception. But the rest of the animals didn't do anything wrong in the Garden of Eden. So since they didn't do anything wrong, they were not punished. And they will not be subject to God's final judgment, like men will. And by men, I mean mankind, which is man and woman. Because they won't be judged, paradise belongs to them. They get to hang out in paradise with us. So they'll be there in the millennial kingdom. Now, another interesting point about the millennial kingdom is if eating keeps on going on after we die in heaven, right? Because we have the feast, the wedding feast in heaven, while the tribulation period is going on down here on earth. We're the ones that are saved, we are up there in heaven having the feast. So we know that eating goes on in heaven. Now, if you have to eat or don't have to eat, I don't know. I would say probably not, because you're going to have a glorified body, so you're not going to be required to eat. So when you eat, you're just going to be doing it for enjoyment, which is kind of cool. But if eating is continuing in heaven, then when we look at Isaiah's prophecy, it would indicate a return to vegetarianism. Okay, that's the way it was in the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden were vegetarians. They ate fruits and vegetables. They didn't eat animals. They hung out with the animals. They weren't eating them. Animals were not originally created by God as a source of food. Animals were created to keep Adam company. Genesis 2, verse 9 and verse 16 through 20 illustrate this. Now, another instance where the content of the story tells us that animals have a soul is the story of God's covenant with Noah and his descendants. Now, everybody knows the story of Noah, how he built the ark and the flood came, and how he was asked to get 2 of every animal and put on the ark. And how God laid down the rainbow as a sign of a promise that he would never flood the earth again. Now, he also made this covenant not only with Noah and his descendants, but also with the animals. In Genesis 9:13, we see that he made that covenant with the entire earth. So why would God make a covenant with any creature, any being, any entity, any man, anything that does not have consciousness, which is one of the traits of the soul? A covenant is not a promise. Okay? Let's say I smack you in the head. Every day I see you, I just walk up and punch you in the mouth. And then one day I say, look, I promise you, I won't do that again. I have not made a covenant with you. I've just made you a promise. Now, if I say, look, the reason I punch you in the mouth is because you always say something stupid every time I talk to you. If you promise to not say anything stupid, I promise I won't punch you in the mouth. That is a covenant. It is an agreement, a contract made between us, where you have a part to play and I have a part to play. That is what a covenant is. A covenant is a two-way street. It takes 2 to tango in a covenant. So if God makes a covenant with man, that means we have an agreement. We have a contract. If he made the same covenant with an animal, that means the animal has to have a consciousness. It has to have thought. It has to have the ability to understand that agreement in order to be a party to that agreement, if that makes sense. So, I also said that he made the covenant with the whole earth. So does this suggest that not only do humans have souls and animals have a soul, but it could also be that some things are alive but don't have a soul, like plants. Or maybe some things have a soul that aren't alive, like mountains and water. There had to be something else that he made the covenant with if he made it with the earth. You see what I'm saying? See where I'm getting at here? The answer to that is I don't know. There's not enough that I've ever found in the Bible that expands on that to give me that answer. So I don't know. It could be that he was talking about the vegetation. But if plants have a consciousness and a soul, then vegetarians are going to feel real, real bad. Because the whole idea of being a vegetarian for most people is that they say meat is murder. They don't want to kill the beautiful little animals, so they eat plants instead. But if it turns out that plants have a soul and have consciousness, and we're eating them too, not a good day for vegetarians. I'm not saying they do. I don't know. I know that plants are alive. I know that plants will grow towards the sun. I know that plants develop protections against predators. Some plants are predators, like the Venus flytrap. Does that mean they have a consciousness? Does that mean that they're capable of thought? I don't know. I don't have enough information to make that determination, but it's definitely interesting. But only humans ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And only humans were created in the image of Almighty God. So that does separate us from the rest of creation. But it does not mean that good and evil are not present in the animal kingdom. And it does not mean that animals are unintelligent. Because they're not unintelligent. I can tell you that. As a hunter, I can tell you that. There are animals out there that have strategy. They plan out their attacks on their prey. This goes all the way back to the time of dinosaurs. Raptors would plan out their attack to where they would each go a different direction and funnel the prey to where they wanted them so they could attack them. That requires intelligence. There's no way you can do that without having some form of intelligence. Now, animals do follow their instincts. And I would say probably most scientists, now I'm going out on a limb here because I don't have a study to back me up, but I would say most scientists and scientific people that think that way would probably say that animals are following their instincts. They don't really know the difference between good and evil. At least not consciously the way we do. Because one reason could be that they never ate the forbidden fruit in Eden. So they never received the knowledge of good and evil like we did. But if you've ever had a dog, and that dog does something he knows he ain't supposed to do. Like if you tell that dog, you're not allowed to get up on the couch, and he knows he's not allowed to get up on that couch, and you leave the room to go to the bathroom, and you come back, and that dog is up on the couch. Now he knows he's not supposed to be on that couch. You don't even have to say a word. You just walk back into the room. That dog will jump down off that couch, lay down on the floor, and look up at you with a guilty look on its face. If you have a cheeseburger or a piece of cake or whatever, some type of food on your plate, and you sit that down to go to the other room to go to the bathroom or something, you come back, and that dog is eating that food, he will give you that same look. He knows he's done something wrong. So I would submit to you that would mean that animals do know the difference between good and evil. So I think that when Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, I don't think that it just gave mankind that knowledge of good and evil. I think that potentially it opened up that knowledge to the world. So the animal kingdom knows good and evil as well now. That's my own thought. I don't have anything biblical to back that up. That's just my own observation of animals, and I think they do know the difference. Now, another very interesting thing is that Jesus' death is very significant to animals, just like it is to humans. Because he replaced and ended all animal sacrifice by dying on that cross. Because when he died on that cross, he symbolically became the sacrificial lamb once and for all. He is the sacrifice. It used to be that they would sacrifice lambs to God. They would make burnt offerings and all that kind of stuff. He became the sacrificial lamb, so they are no longer necessary. The last thing I want to cover really quickly, because I'm getting up there in time here, is that there will be some people that will say in biblical times it wasn't like it is now. People did not have pets, and therefore they did not view the animals as they did today. I don't know. People back then had farm animals, and they used to travel a lot with the animals, and they had a relationship with the animals. The story of Balaam's donkey is just one illustration from the Bible. You had Alexander the Great and his horse. That's another example from that time period. So they had a bond with their animals. It wasn't like they just viewed them as dumb animals. They cared about them. In ancient Egypt, cats were domesticated, and they were highly, highly revered, sometimes even looked at as gods. In India, cows were back then and still are sacred creatures and worshipped. In the book of Revelation, horses play a major role. So I think that even back then, they cared a great deal about animals, just like we do today. They may not have had all the same exact pets as we did, and it may not have been as common to have pets as it is for us. But I believe that they cared about them as well. Another illustration of this is when Jesus is describing how God knows every little detail about his entire creation. In Matthew 10:29, Jesus said, "Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father's will." So God's final consent for life and death even includes every single little sparrow. Now the sparrow is a little bitty common bird. It says here they were sold for next to nothing. But even those little lowly birds God loves and cares about. They're priceless to him. So we know that animals are going to be part of the end times. They're going to be part of the millennial kingdom. We know that they were important enough to God to save on the ark. God easily could have just killed all the animals with the flood and said to hell with them and just made new ones. If they didn't have a soul, if they weren't important to him, he would have done it that way. It would have been easy. But instead, he wanted to save them and put them on the ark. The final thing I want to say before I throw it back over to Old Boy, I want to talk about a couple verses in the book of Job. In Job 12, verses 7 through 10. It says, "But ask the beasts, and they will teach you, the birds of the air, and they will tell you, or the plants of the earth, and they will teach you, and the fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this. In his hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind. So in the very last sentence there, the word life is that word nefesh that we talked about earlier in Hebrew. Now, breath in Hebrew is ruah. This verifies yet again that animals have a soul. Because if you translate that using the Hebrew, what it's saying is not in his hand is the life. It's saying in his hand is the soul of every living thing and the breath of all mankind. So here they're saying every living thing has a soul. Now, could that mean plants as well, like I spoke about earlier? Maybe. Unfortunately, there's not enough corroborating scripture for me to say definitively yes to that. But you could make a case. You really could. So in closing, what I would say is this study is simply another way that science has discovered something that God told us through the Bible thousands of years ago. Science today is finally catching up to things that man knew when the Bible was written. That's important. That should tell you something. The Bible is full of things like that science is now proving is true. So how can you look at that book and say it's not true? How would they have the knowledge to tell you things that modern science is just now beginning to prove? Pretty interesting. With that being said, I'm going to throw over to Old Boy. I want to get his opinion on the article, get his opinion on whether he thinks animals have souls, go to heaven, all that kind of stuff. And maybe some stories from his own life if he has time of times when animals he had showed that they had conscious thought and all that kind of stuff. Whatever he wants to talk about, basically. So, Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. We'll talk about the crow first. The crow, I think, here's the difference, is what I think. I don't think that dogs know right or wrong. I think they have a different sense than we do. They can sense right and wrong, but they don't know the difference. I think they can be taught certain things, like you were with the dog, like I was saying. But now birds are different. Some birds can actually mimic. Not talking just about crows. Some can actually say words. Now, I think crows are sacred anyway. The raven, actually, not and the crow. Native Indians believe they're special. And if you ever seen the movie The Crow, I'm getting into Hollywood, the Crow movie, the crow can bring a soul that was done wrong. Like his family was his wife was murdered, and the other one was there's a couple other ones I didn't really like, but the first Crow movie, we all know Brandon Lee was in it, and he died during the movie. So they believe it can bring a soul back that was done wrong. Now, I don't know if I believe that, but that was actually a comic book written, a graphic novel made, I think it was by Dark Horse back in the time, that was made into a movie, but it was about the crow. Do I think crows have a sense? I do. I think they can sense good and evil. I think that's different, though, than a soul. I think that they're a bird, though, so I don't know too much about about the whole thing about the soul thing. I don't know if they do. I think they can sense things that we can't, just like cats have a sixth sense and dogs. They know if, like, how guys, we do paranormal, they know and can feel it, and they can actually see stuff that we can't see. I think they have a different sense of things. I think they're innocent, though. I think they can be turned bad, like anything can be beaten, and they learn to be evil, and I think they can be learned to be good animals. That they do have sense, though, because I've seen good animals just snap and bite somebody, and I've seen bad animals go good and not do it anymore. So they do know right from wrong. I do believe that. Now, the whole soul thing, I'm not going to get into that because that's a religious thing, but it's a possibility. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I don't believe that. You have a difference of opinions, but it's possible. I'm not going to sit here and say that's impossible. No, because I've seen animals that spirits I wouldn't see why they wouldn't, if you believe that, why they wouldn't go to heaven, because they haven't done anything wrong. They're pretty innocent, other than what they get taught. Just like, we have a conscience of right and wrong. I think animals can learn that from humans. I think human beings teach them to be bad or good. That's like I was saying right now. I think they get taught to be bad and good. So maybe that is true to a point. They could be bad or they could be good. They know what they're doing. Like James said, they'll eat a piece of pizza. If you leave it, they'll eat it, and then they'll know they did wrong. They're not supposed to do it. But I think their instincts are over control them, where they can't control it like humans can. We just make the decision of eating it or not eating it. You see what I mean? I think their animal instincts jump in. Insects, birds, and reptiles and stuff like that, I don't believe do. Maybe birds are just different. They know how to take souls. They're not like, animals. Animals are mammals. It's a different kind of creature. So maybe they all have a different meaning. Like he's the serpent, got cursed in Adam and Eve, telling Eve to eat the apple. So now it slivers on its belly. So maybe the bird doesn't. That's what they do. They take the souls. If you ever think about it, some people believe that they take the lost souls to maybe hell, or they stay in purgatory. Because look what we deal with. We see souls all the time, or demons, or whatever. Maybe it's a way that demons can get to people. You never know. They can go through birds, because maybe they don't have a soul. Did you ever think about that? And that's another way of thinking. Maybe that's how they get into birds. Like he was with the crows. Maybe they don't have a soul, so the demons can, just like the snake can go that route with the devil. The devil got Eve to eat an apple. If you think about it, that's what I'm trying to say. Maybe they use animals who don't have souls to do things. I think some humans may not. This is another argument I'm going to have. I think some, we're going to go into the Bible. The part where it says, the angels fell in love with the women and men. Well, maybe the demons who were already here have done the same thing. They were already damned. So, that's just another show I want to do one day. Maybe we'll talk about that one day, and it'll be a show down the line. And I'm going off subject. Sorry, guys. But do I believe they have souls? Maybe, maybe not. Cats might. I think maybe it's a different way than we have it. I think if there is a heaven, they go to heaven automatically. I don't think they go to hell or maybe purgatory, because there's no way of judging them. They haven't, a cat does something, it's because they learned it. They don't know. I don't think they know the difference between right and wrong like we do. They don't remember things as long as we do. They do. I mean, they remember who their masters are, and they know not to bite. That's because they got taught. So it's whatever they get taught. That goes on to the master. They just learned something they weren't supposed to do. They don't know right from evil from good, though. I think, and I think the only reason they do is because they have instincts that we don't have, that tells them that that's not good. It's not like we know, hey, some of us do. Some of us do have different instincts that we could tell if somebody's a bad or a liar, but they just know all of a sudden. They're alarmed, especially dogs. Cats, too. So, if you ever see movies, dogs always get killed because I don't think spirits like dogs. I think they're protecting the human being, so that's why they do it. So maybe they're just more of a protection for, if you believe that, God put them here to protect you from, regular things, creatures, like regular, like another dog or a cat or something. But it also protects you from the underworld with demons and spirits and stuff. And cats are the same thing, because that's why they were so sacred in Egypt, like he was talking about, because they're supposed to have some kind of thing with it. They could see, who's bad and who's good. And you ever see cats roam around at night? They see at night. Dogs not as good as cats. Cats are different. Cats, you have to earn cats' trust. You can't just meow. I mean, it happens sometimes, but majority of the time, you have to earn a cat's trust. Cats just don't trust anybody. A cat, you can pet the cat and love you to death, but if you touch them wrong way, they'll scratch, you're getting ripped open. It's just the instinct they have, and I think that's another thing. I think their instincts, they just can't control them like we can. We just choose not to. So they may have a soul, and I think they probably all go to heaven if there is, and that I don't see no reason why they wouldn't. I don't see why they haven't done anything wrong. Now the other things like insects and reptiles, I think those are vessels. I don't know what you would say about them. I don't think that's why you ever see like some people can get a snake, they become friends with it, and I think there's a reason for that. I think some animals will only trust certain people, and that's a very few. But majority of the time, you can't get a cockroach to do anything. You can't get. I mean, I've seen people get like tarantulas to move and let them hold you, but I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't trust them because they're gonna bite. Their instincts are gonna bite you because you're just That's their mechanism. And there's some plants that do it. Some people don't realize some plants can eat things. The Venus fly traps. They eat flies, and they can eat meat. There was one that can eat meat, like not human, but they would like feed it meat. It learned how to do that. So I don't know. That's even weirder. To bring that one up, I was just thinking about that. It had nothing to do with it, but just some things are maybe we're not meant to know why they do them, or they do have it. Like crows, I'm not surprised. I think they have a photographic memory. They remember certain things. Like you'll see birds. You ever see crows? They come back for food. They know somebody's feeding them. So that would make sense. And sometimes you'll see a crow or a bird hang around somebody, but then some birds they fly away, but they'll sit there because I think they can sense they're not in danger. I think they know the difference of bad and like, are they going to get killed or not? And I think that's another sixth sense we don't have. I think some people do, and some people just never going to get it. And even if they did, it doesn't matter. They just don't care, or they just don't use it. I think that's what makes us the difference between them. And I think we were all pretty different. If they got a Garden of Eden at the time, and then we messed up and ate the apple. So I think we got separated from everything. Maybe we actually were talking to them, and we could understand what dogs and cats thought at one time. Now we can't because of what happened. So, I want to know what you guys comment, because I know James went into a long detail. I don't know how much show's left because it was a long show. He went into long detail about this because it was just a long subject. Sometimes it happens, guys. And I want to know what your opinion is. Tell us what you think. Do they have souls? Do you think they go to heaven? Do you think or do you think they just are born with a different sense? Well, they already are. That's a proven fact. They have a different sense with us. They just know. Or do you think they just learn from us? I mean, they're not idiots. Dogs are not stupid either. They can mimic what we do. It's a proven fact. So do gorillas. Some dolphins know how to. It's not really like talk to each other, but they know how to use sonar with each other to know things. So remember that, guys. They use a power we don't even use. So I wouldn't say it's impossible. They know who their masters and their owners are. So it could be very true, especially you see apes. They know how to talk, and not like we do, but they say they know, not like talk how you think I'm saying, but they make noises and they understand us. Chimpanzees, especially orangutans, they know what a Coca-Cola is. I saw it. They drink it. They know because and then even some of them walk on. They should have on 2 feet. The gorilla was mimicking the guy at the zoo, one of the keepers. So I believe it can be possible. It's not impossible. I have a difference of opinion, but I think there is a possibility. Now with plants, I don't know. And that would be true. Vegetarians are being hypocrites, but I don't think that's true. I think some plants may be like trees. If you look at it, it looks like some trees look like our lungs. And we get a lot of energy from trees. So that's not impossible either. So, but that's a different kind of vegetable. I think if God made vegetables and fruits, he made certain ones for us to eat. And then when we got out, we decided to slaughter animals. Because I think some men are just they see something weaker and they want to conquer it. And they said, well, I'm getting tired of eating fruit and salads, so I want to eat some ham. And they wonder what those pigs taste like? Yeah, they butcher them and start eating them, and then start breeding them for butchery. And lambs and goats and cows. And then some, like he was saying, India, they don't eat cows like we do. It's just a whole different. And Muslim countries, they hate pork. It's unclean. So it's possibilities. The Jewish faith is the same way. They don't eat pork or anything with blood in it. It has to have no blood in it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show, James. So there you go, brother. I don't know how much time we got, but thank you for letting me talk.
We don't have a whole lot of time left, only a few minutes, but one thing I would submit is love. It's a very simple word, but it's a very important one. Animals can love. They have that capacity. You always hear these stories about a dog, for example, whose owner died. And they come in a week later or 2 weeks later or whatever like that, and they find the dog laying with the owner. The owner's dead. There's no reason for that dog to still be there with that owner. He should be doing something completely different. Survival would state that you're not going to hang out there. That owner can't feed you anymore. But the dog loves its owner. And it's sad that its owner is dead. So it lays down with the owner, and in some cases the dog dies as well. Because it won't leave its master's side even though its master is dead. Not even to go get a drink. And it ends up dying. You see cases like that. To me, that shows the capacity for love. You see all kinds of cases where dogs will give their life to protect their owner. Now, if dogs didn't have a soul, why would they do that? That is 100% against their instincts. Your first instinct, any animal's first instinct is self-preservation. They want to survive. Why would that animal willingly give its life to protect you if it wasn't capable of loving you? That doesn't make any sense why it would do that. Now, the reason why that is so important, because the Bible tells us God is love. If you look at entities without a soul, such as demons, they're not capable of love. They don't have love like we have love. Angels, even though they're on God's side, don't have love. They worship God. They follow orders. When they looked upon the daughters of men in Genesis 6, found them attractive and wanted to come down and get with them, it wasn't because they loved them. They were experiencing lust. Because when they got down here, it wasn't just women that they were lustful with. It was all forms of animals as well. So that's not love, that's pure lust. Now, the reason why they're not capable of love, and the reason why demons are not capable of love, is because they don't have souls. We have souls. God breathes that soul into you. That's why you're capable of love. And I would submit to you that animals are also capable of love. So they have to have that bit of the divine as well. Just a thought. That being said, I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy really quickly so he can give his final shout-outs, and we will wrap it up.
Thank you, brother. I hope everybody enjoyed the show, especially on Parax Radio. Thank you for listening to us for the last 3 years. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a little bit different. Tell us what you think. If you guys want to get any merchandise, I'll tell you where to go. shirts, covert masks, cups, all kinds of cool stuff. Let us know, and he'll get it out there for you and tell you where to get them. Also, check us. You want to check out our old shows? Go on YouTube on James Hershey Jr.'s YouTube page and subscribe. We have all kinds of cool videos, video games, all kinds of paranormal stuff. We'll start getting all the paranormal stuff shows out there soon when covert gets a little bit under control. I don't know how long that's going to be, so you know how that's going, guys. So I hope you have a good night. Blessed be. Misfits, Sugar Ladies, Monster Hunters, and Demon Lovers. I love you. Have a great night.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's where all the merch is. I want to thank you guys for listening to the show. I want to thank you for all the support that you give us. And I'd like to know down in the comments what you think. Do you think animals have souls? It's a very interesting subject matter. And I think that when you actually look at the Hebrew translation and you see how it's translated to English, it becomes pretty clear that the Bible's telling you they do. But as always, you make up your own mind. Till I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.